Hello, Miami. This is 305 Sports Now, your home podcast and channel for all things Miami sports related. I am Will, and welcome to my analysis of the Miami Hurricanes versus UNC game, North Carolina Tar Heels game today. And I'm sure you feel the same way I do. It's like, fudge, man. This feels like the A&M game all over again. All right, except Miami was able to put up good offensive numbers, but was not able to stop them on defense. And on several occasions, though, and it just felt so winnable. So winnable. Okay, so the question was, the Miami Hurricanes had to deal with 2 weeks of being bantered about the whole Middle Tennessee loss and how would Tyler Van Dyke bounce back from being benched. It would affect the psyche and so on and whatnot. And we did get a very, 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 very powerful and strong quarterback duel between the upstart freshman Drake May from UNC and the veteran Tyler Van Dyke, as Drake May for North Carolina went 19 for 28 with 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And those interceptions were huge because he had only had 1 interception coming into the game with 19 touchdowns. The Miami Hurricanes defense was able to turn him over at least twice. Tyler Van Dyke, though, had a hell of a day, though. 42 of 52, 496 yards passing with 3 touchdowns and 1 late interception. All right. And the one thing about Tyler Van Dyke in this game and the TVD of old under Rhett Lashley's offense is the fact that he spread the ball around everywhere. All right. The ball touched at least 8 to 9 different receivers in today's game. And one of them was Will Mallory, as Will Mallory, pretty much had 8 catches for 115 yards. Keyshawn Smith, right, had 2 catches for 20 yards. And a touchdown, right, on a slam pattern entering the end zone. Henry Parrish had 3 catches, 54 yards, 1 touchdown. And Kobe Young finally makes an appearance, the JUCO transfer, right? The 6'4", by the way, is a very big guy, very strong. Had 3 catches, 43 yards, and a beautiful fade route in the fourth quarter to have his lone touchdown. Going over stats, one of the things that the Miami Hurricanes did have going for them is that they had a pretty good and pretty stout run defense, all right, against running backs. Well, UNC did run the ball well against the Canes, all right? As a team collectively, they had 161 yards rushing. Receiving the ball, though, J.J. Jones had 2 catches for 80 yards, murdered us on a 74-yard bomb where it was a misassignment by Cam Kitchens, the way it looked, at least on tape, and a 74-yard bomb in which Jones catches the ball and takes it to the house against the Canes. And, of course, Josh Downs, kills us again with 6 catches, 69 yards, and 1 touchdown late in the second quarter. All right, so that's pretty much as far as I want to go over in terms of stats from the offensive side and the perspective of the offense. Team stats as well. The Miami Hurricanes, let me tell you, the Miami Hurricanes did win the stat battle in particular for the most part, as the Canes had 30 first downs to UNC's 22. Total yards for Miami was at 538. UNC was 470. Time of possession, though, was won by the Tar Heels. Not by much, though. 31-46 to Miami's 28. I'm sorry, 31-14 to Miami's 28-46. Okay, so just a few takeaways of the game. In general, Miami has a big play problem. All right. The Miami Hurricanes once again give up another big play, a chunk play that led to a touchdown, another 74-yard pass from Drake May over to JJ Jones. Very costly in that game. One of my biggest concerns that I have about this is because as good as Jamel Adai is as a recruiter, the Miami Hurricanes really only have 1 defensive back signed, for this recruiting class, and they need more cornerback help than anything. All right. This upcoming recruiting cycle and the following recruiting cycle as well. So that's my biggest concern as it goes in referencing to the DB battle, in general. Another thing, too, the Canes left 17 points in the field. All right. At least 17 points. They should have won this football game and defeated North Carolina handily, actually, to tell you the truth. They had that 4th and goal, in which all they had to do was get 3 feet because it was on the 1-yard line, and they couldn't score a touchdown. And they decided to throw the ball on 4th down, and it's an incomplete pass to Will Mallory. The fans were not very happy, in particular. So Josh Gaddis still early on in the game was struggling with his play calling. I will say this. Another thing, that fumble by Jay Knighten, one of the things I guess the reason why I was mentioning this on social media is that I was looking at a video of Tiki Barber yesterday while I was at the gym, and Tiki Barber, his he stopped fumbling, later on in his career, not as much because his coach for the Giants had him pretty much hold the ball a little higher and tight. Makes it a lot harder for defenders, to punch the ball out. And that's one of the comments I made. It's like, I don't understand why coaches don't follow the Tiki Barber formula in which it negated his fumbles. Jay Knighten last year had a couple times where he fumbled the football, and he had a very costly fumble in this game as he did run for a first down, put Miami in position, to tie the game, being down 24-17, and he fumbles the football. And to be honest with you, the guy did punch it out. The linebacker did punch it out, but he had to dive in, and it was basically off an arm tackle that he was able to get that ball out. And, these guys are strong and powerful, but if he holds that ball a little tighter up higher towards the shoulder pad, I don't think Knighten fumbles that ball, and again, he fumbles the football. UNC then, because of that interesting aspect, is able to milk the clock for 8 minutes and kick a field goal, making it a 2-possession game. So that fumble really did hurt the Canes, and that fumble really did, kind of put the nail in the coffin for Miami, because North Carolina was able to get points, out of that situation. So that's what I mean by lack of execution. Again, a couple drop balls here and there. Michael Redding had a major drop in the game. He slipped and stuff like that, but the ball did hit him in the hands. He dropped that ball. It could have made TVD's opportunities a little easier, in terms of gaining yards and first downs. Will Mallory had a huge drop, as well. I don't remember if it was on 3rd or 4th down. And I believe it was somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd quarter. I really don't recall. Huge drop there. It was an easy pass. It was a touch pass by Tyler Van Dyke. Those are the kind of catches that Mallory makes on a regular basis, drops the ball there. That was pretty huge. So that's just a thing of execution. Another aspect of it was the touchdown given up by the defense, in which JJ Jones went 74 yards. Either Tyreek Stevenson was supposed to play more man coverage, or Cam Kitchens was supposed to play over the top as a safety, as being the safety position that he is, roam a bit more and help out, provide help, to the DB, to his cornerback. And one of those two guys was wrong. The way it looked on film, Cam might have been off. He may have forgotten his position, and that's where the touchdown was given up. But nonetheless, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Those are kind of things that, again, executing, your plays. Another thing I had a problem with, although I thought Kevin Steele called a semi-decent game, in particular, I say that because North Carolina is averaging 45 points per game and 500 yards of offense, all right, as well. And Drake May has had a couple of games where he's had 5 touchdown passes. So before I get heat, for saying that calling a decent game, let me explain why. In a minute, but I'm going to criticize Kevin Steele here. I do not think that Harvey should have ever been, in coverage, on a 3rd down situation on 39, 3rd and long. That's when your DN is supposed to pretty much eat and try to get to the quarterback. And Harvey was put in a position where he had to cover the running back, and he got beat on that play. In particular, that was about a gain of 10 yards, in which May hits his running back, which it could have given the ball back to Miami, another opportunity to score. That's a bad part of execution, and that was also bad play calling, I believe, on the part of Kevin Steele in terms of where he put his players in position. It should have been a linebacker, or should have been one of the safeties covering the tailback there, not a defensive end who specializes particularly in in attacking the passer. Now, I will say last year Harvey did have a pick six, basically jumping a bubble screen, against Sam Howell, just didn't work in his favor. I don't believe Harvey should have been, put in pass coverage in an obviously situation where he has to rush. So that's where I had a major issue. And again, you got to get 3 feet, that 4th and 1. Sorry, you can't run up the middle 3 times and then go for a pass. You have to confuse the defense a little bit. They knew exactly what you were going to do. You ran it 3 times. One of them was an attempted quarterback sneak, and with Tyler Van Dyke, and it just didn't work in your favor. It really didn't work in your favor, in that position. All right, so as I'm done pretty much bashing the defense a little bit, I do have to give out some positives in this game. One of the things that the Miami Hurricanes had to do is pretty much make Drake May uncomfortable, and that they did. Okay, they did sack him 5 times. Okay, so that's a good thing. Miami's had a lot of trouble this season with athletic quarterbacks, in particular, even against Bethune, and Chase Cunningham as well over at Middle Tennessee. They did make life a little miserable for Drake May, sacking him 5 times and intercepting him twice. One of those leading to points. So that was a good thing that the Canes defense did. The Canes also, as I mentioned, held North Carolina 27 points in the ball game. They averaged about 45 per game. They lit up Notre Dame as well, and they had a 63-point game against App State. App State has been a giant killer in the past, so that's not a joke. So the Canes did hold them to about 27 points, and the time possession battle was not lost by much by the Canes. Okay, so North Carolina only had about 3 minutes on them in particular. What did kill the Canes, though, I will say, was that 8-minute drive. Okay, once Knighten fumbled and the defense couldn't get the ball back, against Drake May, the Drake May led team in UNC. That was a bit of a gasser, for this football team. But they did pick them off twice. They sacked them 5 times. The run defense was a bit off today, but it did get some key stops. In several occasions, against the run, basically forcing 3rd and long is what I'm trying to say, and forcing an obvious passing situation. So I will say that the defense did hold their own much better. I don't agree with a lot of the people online. I thought linebacker play has improved, has gotten better. Corey Flagg is a much better tackler this year than last. He was considered one of the weakest points of this defense. I thought Corey Flagg had a better game. He got to the quarterback, and then also on a read option and so on, he got to the quarterback as well. He didn't bite on the quarterback and so on, handing off the football to the running back. He was able to, assess his situation, adjust, and was able to make the tackle. I think it was like a 2 or 3 yard loss on that play. So I do believe linebacker play has gotten better. My biggest concern of the Canes is not so much the linebacking core, it is the defensive backfield. If Miami does not get a pass rush, right, in particular, if they don't get heat on the quarterback, the DBs will give up big plays. I'm sorry. It's with a few exceptions like Cam Kitchens, and James Williams. They're very consistent players, especially Cam's. I think Cam's had the best year amongst the defensive backfield as far as Miami Hurricanes go. But as far as the DBs, defensive backs, Tyreek, had good games, and he got jacked up today, I will say, by UNC. So that's just a little bit on that. Positive on the defense as well. They did hold North Carolina to 6 points in the 3rd and 4th quarter. One of those scores coming late in the game. All right. So Miami did win, technically did win the second half. They scored a touchdown as well. So that's a little bit on that end. So I like I said, I'm a very pragmatic guy. I call like I see it. Some of you may disagree. Some of you are free to comment and tell me what you think, and even on any social media platform. I don't care. I comment on my own. I comment on others as well. I just like the fan participation. I think that's really good. One thing I will say, and I will give credit to both Mario Cristobal and Josh Gaddis. Both individuals are seen as very pig-headed and stubborn, as far as the fan base sees them, and even some pundits might say, but I will give them credit. They finally opened up the playbook, and we saw a much quicker offense. As far as TVD was allowed to run, it was a bit more of an air raid where the pass dictated more to allow the run to be able to, even though the running game wasn't very good today, but nonetheless, the pass was setting up the run is what I'm trying to say. And that worked in Miami's favor. This team, as I've mentioned in previous episodes and podcasts, they are not built like Michigan. They are not built like Oregon. They are built for speed and getting in a track meet, with the opposing defense. That is what this offense is made to do. All right. It's concerning because they don't have that quote unquote deep threat. I do think Keyshawn Smith can be that guy. They don't have Rambo, who could throw up downfield and, could beat most defenders, as well. And even Mike Harley, who was enough of a veteran to be able to get open and create space for himself. They don't have that guy this year, at least not yet. Hopefully they could find him sometime this season. But nonetheless, your slants, your smash routes, your hitches, your quick drags and stuff like that, your movement, rolling out of the pocket and so on. Those are all things in quick motion. If you do it quickly enough, that most defenses cannot stop this team is doing. Tyler Van Dyke is very good at pretty much running a 2-minute drill. All right. And that's what your offense is going to have to be moving forward. Okay. You're for this year, Coach Cristobal, your passing game is going to have to set up your running game. You cannot let TVD not get into rhythm. once he's in rhythm, he's one of the best in the country. He proved it last year with those 6 games of 300 plus yards and 2 touchdown plus games. All right. And he proved it today. All right. He almost gave you 500 yards of passing. All right. He would have gotten it if he didn't have a couple drops in that game. All right. As well. Again, Mallory and Redding are the 2 that come to mind. But TVD lit it up. So you opened up the playbook. Okay. You allowed your quarterback to do what he does best. And he performed for you. All right. So I'm very happy that Cristobal and Gaddis, pretty much threw caution to the wind and let TVD just go. And he did go. All right. And it worked. Okay. As well. So the tempo was much needed, very refreshing to see. It did catch North Carolina off guard, and Miami was almost successful in pulling off the win. Missed field goal by Borregales. I thought the snap was too high. That could have probably affected his timing and kicking the ball. Missed field goal, and again, same thing. Texas A&M. You had multiple opportunities with being inside the 5-yard line, and you don't put points on the board. Okay. Same thing happened here. You had 4th and 1. I get it. UNC sucks at stopping the run. In general, they're not a very good defensive team, but you were predictable. All right. Everyone knew you're probably gonna run it 3 times. And that's what they played you on. And then you passed. Right. No. Listen, we just proved today. We saw the emergence of Colby Young. I think one of the reasons why he has not been on the field is because in practice, his route running has been a bit off from what I've heard. All right. As allegedly. From what I've heard, his route running is a bit off and his footwork isn't the best. All right. But today he was a gamer. He gave you 3 good passes, one of them being a touchdown. That's the kind of guy. He's like 6'4", if I'm not mistaken. Utilize him in the red zone. Throw a freaking fade out. Jaleel Skinner, 6'3", has a great wingspan and he's lengthy. Throw it up to those guys. Most of our wide receivers are bigger than any defensive back we're facing. Toss it up and give them a shot. All right. Or put them in situations where it's hard for the defender to adjust in terms of their body contortion to be able to break up pass up by one of these receivers. All right. I mean, you have to try more fade routes in the end zone, or at least give your playmakers an opportunity to make plays, especially if within 10 yards or something like that, and have that opportunity. That's all pretty much, I'm trying to say. Don't be predictable. Allow your receivers, especially your tall guys, to make plays, in fade routes right in the corner of the end zone. All right. So that's pretty much, if you don't underthrow those balls, they don't get intercepted. Plain and simple. If Van Dyke tosses those balls where only his receivers can get it, or if they're too high and your receivers miss it, that's fine. The only time that it is a threat for a pick is if he underthrows his receivers. And I don't think he will. All right. If he does, he does, but I really don't think he will. I think he's a bit more accurate than most quarterbacks, even in the ACC, have seen. All right. So that's pretty much what I want to say. All right. Don't be so predictable in the red zone. Don't just go to the run. All right. Mix and match a bit your offense and keep the tempo going. If you run up tempo next week against Virginia Tech, you are going to maul them because Virginia Tech sucks this year. All right. They are a terrible football team. Last year, they gave you a fight because they just gave you a fight. They're a little bit better. Have a new coaching staff this year. They're a bit in disarray. They only scored 10 points against North Carolina, which has a putrid defense. All right. We left 17 points on the board today. Miami could have had 41 points. Easily 41 points. We left 17 points on that field. 17, or at least 13. All right. In case the Knighten thing ends up a field goal. Just saying. All right, so that's pretty much what I'm trying to say here is that Miami left a lot of points, on that field. North Carolina really didn't, to be frank with you. They really didn't. Their interceptions were not deep in Miami territory per se. They were in, their own territory, in particular. They weren't deep. They really didn't leave that many. If they did, maybe 3, and UNC. But Miami left about 17. No, they're between 13 and 17 points on that field today. That's all it really is. They should have won this football game. So next week, you need to keep that playbook open, let your run set up your pass in particular, and let TVD go nuts. Let him do it again. He did it last year. And Virginia Tech is worse this year than last. So open it up. Just go to a freaking air raid. All right. Then you could recruit in later on how you want to mold your team into that balanced power set, with occasional, talk going deep and all that stuff. And and the quarterback can roll out or keeps it on a read option and goes. You can do all that in a couple of years. But as of right now, you have to adjust your personnel, and your personnel is an air raid offense type of personnel that is used to a up-tempo, fast-paced offense, and it's worked. Okay. The Miami Hurricanes averaged over 30 points in the last 2 seasons because they had an air raid type spread up-tempo. Keep it up. All right. Don't slow down. Get your foot. All right. Josh Gaddis, Coach Cristobal, get your foot. All right. Push that pedal and let your quarterback run like an engine. All right. Just like a freaking muscle car that wants to pierce and bull his way through the competition. Let him loose. All right. Let him loose. Let TBD loose. And you will at least win 8 games this year and your bowl game if you let that kid loose. Because your defense, I think, will eventually get some things right. Just a couple tweaks here and there. And like I said, and also before I go, in regards to your defense, just play cover 2, right? Play cover 2 with the blitz, sending 5 or 6 guys when you can, or have a safety always roaming. Do not do cover 0. You're not a cover 0 team. Your cornerbacks are not that good. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's established. Okay, your cornerbacks are not that good. Have that safety. Have Cam Kitchens or James Williams just roam. All right, like a real hurricane, roam and circle. And if a ball's deep in general, have them pick it or break it up. Assisting the cornerbacks in whatever way they can. Do not leave your guys on an island. They're just not that good to do that. All right, unless your pass rush is unstoppable that day, do not play cover 0 and do not play press man. And leave them open alone on islands. Your DBs are just not that good yet. Okay, they're just not that good yet. But once again, I just want to emphasize again, as far as the offense goes, let the kid loose. All right. He came into the season as a Heisman Trophy candidate for a reason. He's good. Okay. And now that you open up the playbook, let him go. Especially next week. Please let him go. Let him loose. Put that foot on that engine and let that engine do its magic. All right. And roam and roar. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. If you like what you heard, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to 305 Sports Now. For Will, I am Will. Have yourself a nice day. Stay safe. God bless. See you soon.